Hey everybody and welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you're new. My name is Declan and thank you so much for joining me for tonight's video. What if I was to tell you that there is only a 1 in 10 chances that the police would ever find the person who murdered you? This is Weird World and this is the case of who murdered Annie Lee. Annie Marie Lee was born in San Jose, California to a Vietnamese American family. She was super bright and loved to learn, always pushing herself to do better and better. She attended Union Mine High School and graduated valedictorian, a title given to a pupil with the best grades. Her classmates loved her and dubbed her the next Einstein. As she was so clever, she was awarded around $160,000 in scholarship money. Annie made the big move to New York City, where she attended and graduated from the University of Rochester. Her major was cell development biology with a major in medical anthropology. All this hard work paid off and she was accepted to the university of her dreams, Yale. She bunked with 5 other Yale students and they all became pretty close. There, she would go on to study treatments for diabetes and cancer, which would result in her earning her doctorate in pharmacology. Annie studied for this doctorate at 10 Amistad Street, where her lab was located. This was still on Yale grounds. There, also working his butt off, was her lab partner, Raymond J. Clark. He was such a sweet guy and he was so passionate about his work. In his free time, he loved nothing more than to spend it with his dog. Besides winning her career, Annie was also madly in love to a man named Jonathan Woodowski, another graduate studying mathematics and physics. They were in the process of going to get married and they were setting the date, and it was booked September 13th. By now, this was just a few days away. However, the next part of this story isn't so sweet. I'm going to detail Annie's footsteps just several hours before she vanished. On the early morning of September 8th, 2009, Annie left her apartment to go get the transit bus that's set up by Yale to take you to school safely. This would directly drop her off at the Sterling Hall of Medicine on the Yale campus. At around 10 AM, she walked from Sterling Hall to 10 Amistad Street, where her cancer and diabetes research laboratory was located. It's about an 8 to 10 minute walk between these buildings, depending on how fast you walk. She had left her purse, mobile phone, credit cards and all her cash back at Sterling Hall on the Yale campus grounds. She entered the Amistad building just after 10 AM. This can be seen via the security cameras outside. She then made her way down to the basement where her lab was located. This building and the area are monitored by around 75 security cameras, and the entrance to the building and the rooms inside all require a Yale identification card. At approximately 9 PM that night, one of her 5 roommates called the police and reported Annie as missing. They knew that something was up. It's not like she would be out partying, it just wasn't her style. Because of Annie's very high status and overwhelming achievements, the police really listened to these roommates and they realised that they were making sense, so they quickly started to investigate. They came across the discovery that the security cameras had captured Annie entering the building, but she was never seen leaving, which meant she was still somewhere inside this building. It had been 5 days since Annie had went missing, and in the meantime, the FBI, the New Haven Police Department and the Connecticut State Police were all involved. Yale University were offering up to $10,000 to anyone with the information leading to finding Annie. The entire Amistad building was closed during the duration of this search and they looked everywhere. But still, Annie was nowhere to be found. There was only one thing in this building that could ever get out without really being seen, and that was the garbage. They thought that the only way possible Annie could ever get out of this building was if she was in the trash. The police went to Hartford Dump, which is where Yale's garbage is taken to be incinerated, but they came across nothing. However, just a few doors down from the lab that Annie worked in, one of the ceiling tiles were leaking, but not water. Blood. There was one of these ceiling tiles that were foamy-like. Do you know how the type that is in schools and offices, they're square, very boring? One of them had a spot that had congealed blood dried into it. Once this tile was taken down, on the above side of the congealed blood, so the part that faced up into the ceiling, the loft part, there was a bloody, drenched sock. On Sunday, September 13th, the day Annie was meant to be getting married, the police discovered her body in that very room. She was found bent and squashed into a cable chase that was inside the wall. When the autopsy came back, it concluded that Annie had been strangled to death. So far I've mentioned 7 people that were very, very permanent in Annie's life, and one of these people is her murderer. Now let's break it down. Her roommates, well, they're ruled out because, well, one, They weren't anywhere near Annie when it all happened. They all had their classes to attend. That's their alibi. As well as, they were all together when they realised that Annie never returned home and was missing. They were never suggested as suspects, but I'm just trying to paint the picture for you guys. So that leaves just two. Well, Annie's boyfriend has to be ruled out because he too was at classes in a completely different building. As well as Annie was seen entering the building herself. And remember, it's high security. You need a key pass, which only the students that attend that lab have. If you didn't have one, you never got in. So that leaves just one person that I've mentioned. Raymond. He was seen entering the building the same day as Annie. He had a key pass. He worked with Annie. But that didn't make sense. A sweet guy that loved his job and in his spare time spent it playing with his dog, murdered his co-worker and then shoved her inside a hole in the wall? Surely not. But so far, he was the only lead that the police had. So they started building a case against him and slowly started putting everything together. They interviewed every single person in that lab to gather information on Raymond. And apparently, he wasn't such a sweet guy. They described him as someone that thought he was better than everybody else. So for example, in the lab, if anyone forgot something silly, like forgot to wear their shoe covers, he would go ballistic and yell and belittle them. He would go completely over the top and rage. So overall, the police were getting this conclusion that he was a very OCD, neat freak, controlling person. Recently, however, his neat freak type of attitude got a little bit stronger. He was seen wiping down surfaces non-stop and spraying air freshener everywhere. Okay, so it's a lab, it has to be clean. Fair enough. The police had gathered up a little bit of information and now they're aware that he is condescending, egotistical, and a little bit of a neat freak. Although all of this actually ended up leading them down the rabbit hole. One of Raymond's ex-girlfriends actually came forward when she heard this news and she described him to be very, very controlling. She said that he would dictate everything in her life, from who she could be friends with, how many friends she could have, how loud she could speak, and how often she could speak. At this point, he was starting to look so shady. And being the only one that would have been around Annie on that night, the police decided to take him in for blood samples to be taken on the night of September 16th. The next day, on September 17th, the DNA results come back from the sock that was found. And to everyone's shock, it was a match. It had a perfect mix of Annie and Raymond's blood. Once the police realised it was Raymond, he was arrested and put on bail for $3 million. His co-workers came forward and explained that Raymond had been writing notes to them and keeping them in his sock. These notes were asking them to help him come up with an alibi and, say I was here and say I was there and trying to basically bribe them. That's that egotistical part coming out of him where he thinks that he can manipulate every single person around him and what he wants he will get. So if he asks for it, he expects it. It was also found that his neat freak personality actually had a motive behind it. He was trying to hide the scent of Annie with the wipes and the air freshener as she was in that room the entire time. The conviction of Raymond was actually delayed multiple times due to many different reasons, but one of them was all of the evidence was not actually being told to the lawyer. The police concluded that this was an attempted sexual assault on Annie, and Raymond entered the Alford plea deal. This is where the defendant maintains their innocence but admits that the prosecution's evidence would likely result in a guilty verdict if brought to trial. He was held in a maximum security prison until his sentencing. Raymond Clark was sentenced up to 44 years in prison for the murder of Annie Lee. It is unsure why Raymond committed this crime as he has never given an explanation to this day. He is set to be released on September 16th, 2053. I don't know about you guys, but this story absolutely just breaks my heart. Annie was such a sweet and caring person and she was really going to shoot for the stars. And all of it was entirely robbed from her. Now the details of that night will remain unknown because Raymond will never admit them. I personally think that there was some sort of jealousy there, or he had feelings for her that she didn't quite have for him. I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this case in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, do the whole thing. This was Weird World and this was the case of who murdered Annie Lee. I'll hopefully see you guys in my next video. Bye!